Hello, welcome to the 15-16 Biology Curriculum Overview for Unit 11, Viruses, Bacteria, and Protists. As we look at our IFD, I want to focus on a few key points. The number of days allotted for this unit by TRS was 7 days. However, for GPISD on our YAC, teachers have been given 9 days to cover this unit. They will begin on March 7th and go through March 11th up to spring break, and we'll resume after spring break on March 21st through March 24th. Now, our processing skills are noted here in black. Our supporting standards, and some are also being spiraled in from previous units, are in green, as well as new and spiraled in SEs for our readiness in red. And also, later on in the presentation, I'm going to go into depth about the prior to this unit and the during this unit, which we both know are used to focus on our engage and explore lesson activities. Now, the best part about this is after the students have completed this unit, they will be able to take this information after the unit and apply it to the upcoming units for 12 and 13 over plant adaptations and animal body systems. As we look at our district level data, I do want to note first that the two SEs readiness standards here that have asterisks by them, these two SEs are being spiraled in. The students have seen this content before in previous units, and even so, looking at the data from 13-14 to 14-15, you can see there has been a decrease in the level of mastery performance from our students over the past year or two. So we want to make sure that we are continuing to focus on these SEs, as well as B4C, which has not been assessed over the last 2 school years, 13-14 and 14-15, which is the reason you see X's here. So please be on the lookout for the blueprint, and I do expect to see those on the blueprint B4C as well on the 15-16 blueprint. So I'm anticipating it being assessed. I cannot give you an answer as to why it has not been assessed in the past, but I would say look forward on the Q4 some. And also our supporting standards are spiraled in from previous units. And as a whole across all of the SEs, our district has decreased in the performance. So this is one of those units we definitely have to make sure the students understand the differences, to understand the comparison and contrast between bacteria, protists, viruses, and their different methods of replication, reproducing, and how they fit within the kingdoms. So this is one of those units that we're going to put a lot of emphasis on based off of looking at our data and how we perform over the previous years. Okay, as we look at our STAR data, as we can see for the past 4 years over the STAR assessment, there's been some fluctuations again in our data. Last school year, 2015, all the SEs were assessed but one of the supporting, which is 11C, which we have no data for. But as we look over the previous years, we can see that there's been fluctuations, increases, and decreases in that data as well. So this year, we want to be prepared if it's assessed or not assessed. We still want to make sure the students have the background knowledge and understandings that they need to do well on the SE. And not just that SE, but all the SEs. We never know which supporting standards are going to be assessed because some of them are assessed, some of them are not, as evident by 8C and 11B, how they were assessed in 2015, but they were not assessed in 2014, and vice versa for 11C. But our readiness standards, as we can see, they're consistently assessed more than one question, and have been so for each of the years. And our data pretty much tells the same story, that we're performing at the same level. We're not showing any dramatic increases in our scores, but there was a dramatic increase from 13 to 14, which was awesome, but we dropped down in 15. So definitely Utilize this data in being sure that we continue to spiral in and provide experiences where the students can become even more knowledgeable and more comfortable with these essays. All right, and looking at our STAR questions, we can look at question 2015-04C. This is a loaded SE, and the next two questions coming behind will be focusing on the same SE. And I have different questions so you can see how they assess the SE and how they interpret this SE. And so I want you to see how they break it down or how they develop questions when they look at the SE. They're not assessing the entire SE in one question. They're taking different components of the SE as they get ready to assess it. So it says models of a human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, and an animal cell are shown below. One of the most important things here is that they said models. So what do you want to use in your lessons and your activities? Models. So be sure to use models in your activities. Here they are comparing the structures of comparing the structures of viruses to cells. How do I know that? Because the question says, what is the difference in the function of the glycoprotein structures of an HIV virion and the cilia of an animal cell? So I have a model of two structures. I have one of HIV, one of animal cell. I'm looking at the cilia, the structure of both of those components, the glycoprotein, and I need to understand their functions in order to answer this question. So understanding structure and functions are important, and as you can see, that's how they broke down the SE to assess it. Just took a part of it, the SE, and assessed that one part. Now, as we look at a question from 2014, it says a person is affected with the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, may not have any symptoms for a period of time. During this period of time, the virus affects the body by doing which of the following? So what part of the SE is being assessed at this time? It's assessing, describe the role of viruses in causing diseases such as HIV and influenza. And HIV, of course, it says such as, so it is one of the examples that it can be used. However, other different types of viruses can also be assessed, not just HIV and influenza. Those are just two of the types, but in this question they are assessing the virus, HIV. And the correct answer was B. Okay, and as we look at the last question over B4C, is from 2014 STAR release. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, is an illness caused by coronavirus. Symptoms include a high fever, headaches, and body aches. Typically occur 2 to 7 days after infection by the virus. SARS is more serious in elderly patients. The information suggests that the reproductive cycle of the SARS virus is what? Of course, this is a readiness standards, no processing, it's not dual coded. But what part of the SE is being assessed right now? Are we looking at the structure of viruses? No. Are we looking at the role of viruses in causing diseases? No. We're looking at the viral reproduction. And so, as you can see how the state assessed, they break down the SE and ask questions from different parts of that SE. The correct answer for this SE was D. It was the lytic cycle. Okay, looking at question Q54 from the 2013 release assessment. The students have a diagram. They're using processing skills, and they have to look at this diagram and understand the flow of the diagram. And we're looking at the taxonomic groups. And so if you look back at the SE, it says to compare characteristics of taxonomic groups, including, so this is telling you exactly how it's going to be assessed, including archaea, including bacteria, protists, fungi, plants, and animals. And it says which characteristics will be used to complete this chart. And so the students have to identify the characteristics here, and the characteristics here is multicellular. Multicellular organisms have a characteristic that goes here that will be for kingdom Plantae, as well as a multicellular organism that has characteristics of absorptive nutrition and ingestive nutrition for fungi and animalia. So what types of nutrition would that be? And looking at the answer choices, it would be heterotrophic because they do not make their own food, and allotrophic because plants do make their own food. And in the 2015 assessment, question 19 over 11B, supporting standard, investigate and analyze how organisms, populations, and communities respond to external factors. And if you look at the specificity, external factors can be a range of things. It can be touch, it can be other stimulus in the environment. And so the students definitely want to be exposed through their activities of the different external factors and how these different organisms, populations, and communities will respond. And our last question comes from the 2014 release over B11C. Summarize the role of microorganisms in both maintaining and disrupting the health of both organisms and ecosystems. And so the students will have to do some investigations to understand the pros and cons of the different microorganisms and their effects on organisms and ecosystems. And this is just one of those questions where they're assessing one type of microorganism, which is fungi. And so when you're looking at the microorganisms, focus on all the different types of microorganisms and look at your specificity to provide you with those specifics of what you should be covering. And again, as previously stated in previous curriculum overviews, the GPISD Biology Department modified overviews last year. Modified performance assessments in the IFD over the units last year, and Unit 11 is no different. And so it initially started off with 2 PAs, but those 2 PAs have been combined into one modified unit PA. And this is the PA that we will be focusing on. The template is available on Dropbox. And this is just an example of the template and what it looks like. But please do check out Dropbox to get the actual copy and utilize them and tweak them as you need to. And again, this is just an example of how we bundle those SEs. Those SEs are already bundled for you when you look at the PAs. And just combining them and understanding specifically what you're focusing on, what's the big picture, what are the different parts of the SE, and you use that by utilizing your specificity as it is aligned to the TEAG. And so again, as we were discussing microorganisms in B11C, I said focus on the different types of microorganisms, and here are different examples that are provided for you. And just looking through each of those SEs, breaking them down, understanding them, and look at those SEs and relate it back to the PA and what the students are supposed to demonstrate to you that they have mastered the concept. I've pulled the essential questions that would definitely help drive the instruction so that the students can master the PA or better have a great understanding when they get to the PA. These questions will help you see where the students are, and it will be a self-assessment for them if they can thoroughly explain to you their understanding of the content in this unit. And so these essential questions again come from the unit understandings for both the initial, when it was 2 PAs, and I've just combined them all into one for the combined PA. You have your content vocabulary. Again, there are a slew of related vocabulary that you want to look in your IFD for. And misconceptions. Definitely understand what the misconceptions are so that you can plan for them throughout your lesson and have experiences where the students can address those misconceptions and understand the truth and the facts behind them. I hope that you found the information presented in today's presentation to be useful as you get ready to prepare your lesson and develop your lesson frames for the unit. Just a few quick reminders. The Star A accommodations are available on Board Builder. If you do not have the join code for Edmodo Group, please contact me via email. I will provide that to you. The secondary shifted resource Dropbox also has the information, different templates, activities, labs that I've mentioned in this presentation available. If you do not have access to it, also email me. There will be no biology Q4 3-week district assessment. However, units 10 through 13 will be assessed on the Q4 summative, and that summative will be at the end of the school year, June 1st through the 3rd. I hope that I provided you with all the tools necessary, or giving you ideas that you could utilize to help as you start to plan. If there's anything I can do to support you, please do not hesitate to contact me. I've enjoyed providing you with this curriculum overview. Thank you.